Let's talk about the 20 new cards that have been announced for the upcoming expansion, Goblins vs. Gnomes. The first new card is a Neutron, a 1/2 neutral minion for 2 mana with Taunt and Divine Shield. It's kinda like a Goldshire Footman and an Ardian Squire in one. I don't think it is that good, since there's little this card does better than an Ardian Squire. It is barely more durable, and it has the same attack and cost 1 more mana. The Taunt of course gives it some value, but compare this minion with a Haunted Creeper and I'm not sure why I would choose this one, other than to be annoying. The second card is Clockwork Gnome, a 2/1 neutral minion for 1 mana, with a Death Rattle putting a spare part in your hand. This card might be very strong. It is a 1-drop with a Death Rattle, which means that it has synergy with the Undertaker, while being a bit less aggressive with a Death Rattle that gives value instead of damaging the opponent. The spare parts are all low value 1 mana cost spells. None of them are particularly great, but getting them together with a 1-drop that can boost an Undertaker means that the little value they do provide is more than worth the cost. Clockwork Gnome might also work pretty well together with cards that get use out of cheap spells like the Auctioneer or the Violet Teacher. The third card is the Cogmaster, a 1/2 neutral minion for 1 mana that has +2 attack while you have a Mech. I'm not impressed by this card. Sure, it gets buffed if you play this on turn 1 and follow up with a Mech. However, it does not have the snowball potential of the Undertaker, making it a poor alternative. The fourth card is the Explosive Sheep, a 1/1 neutral minion for 1 mana with a Death Rattle that deals 2 damage to all minions. Seemingly powerful versus Zoo decks, however completely neutralized by Silence, meaning that if it gets popular, all Zoo decks will run 2 Owls. I like the Unstable Ghoul better. It is similar, but at least if it gets Silence, it is still a 1/3, making it a better turn 2 play. If Silences did not exist, or in a meta with a lot of aggressive decks that don't run Silence, I think this card would be strong. It is the kind of card that is healthy for the game, because it forces a kind of balance in deck building simply by the fact that it exists. The fifth card is the Mech Warper, a 2/3 neutral minion for 2 mana that lowers the cost of all mechs you play by 1. A must-have card in mech decks, I think. It's a common card, so you can even get 2 of them on the board at once. The stats means that it's a fine play on turn 2 by itself. Say you have another one in your hand and it survives. That means on turn 3 you can play the second Mech Warper plus a 4-cost mech, all for 3 mana. The sixth card is the Micro Machine, a 1/2 neutral minion for 2 mana that gains 1 attack at the start of each turn. Bear in mind that it counts both your turn and your opponent's turn, meaning that by the time you can attack with it, it'll be a 3/2 already. However, it'll only be a 2/2 on your opponent's turn after you play it. So say they have a 2/3 out, you can just kill it and have their own minions survive. I think this card will only be useful in mech-heavy decks because of the synergy, but by itself it is lackluster. The seventh card is the Piloted Shredder, a 4/3 neutral minion for 4 mana with a Death Rattle that summons a random 2-cost minion. A very strong card. If you subtract the 2 mana that the Death Rattle minion would have cost, then you're left with a 2 mana 4/3. Of course, that is a flawed argument. However, it should give you an idea of the value of this card. Minions that summon other minions as Death Rattles have traditionally been very strong, and I don't think this card is any exception. Of note is also that this is the first neutral 4 mana minion with a Death Rattle for those Undertaker decks. The 8th card is the Spider Tank, a 3/4 neutral minion for 3 mana. Simple value, just like a Yeti. However, this card has one thing that a Yeti does not. It is a mech, meaning that while this card will be decent in regular decks, it'll be extraordinarily good in mech-focused decks. The 9th card is the Tinkertown Technician, a 3/3 neutral minion for 3 mana with a battle cry that gives it +1/1 and a spare part if you control a mech. A super powerful card in any mech deck. If played with a mech on the board, it is a 4/4 for 3 mana that also gives you a spell. Can't really argue with that. It'll be an auto-include in any mech deck, which is actually a bad thing. Card choices should not be that obvious. The 10th card is the Bomb Lubber, a 3/3 neutral minion for 5 mana that has a battle cry that deals 4 damage to a random enemy minion. Oh, I wonder what this turn 5 card that can deal damage to a stealthed minion is designed for. An obvious stealthed auctioneer killer. It is an interesting card though. If the enemy only has 1 minion on the board, you know it'll do 4 damage to it, as well as giving you a 3/3. I think this card will be great in Miracle Rogue heavy metas, and okay the rest of the time. The 11th card is the Gnomes Experimenter, a 3/2 neutral minion for 3 mana that has a battle cry that draws a card, but if the card is a minion, it'll be transformed into a chicken. I believe that chicken will be a 1/1 creature that costs 0 mana, meaning that playing this card can result in 2 things. Either it is basically a 3/2 with a 1/1 token that makes you take fatigue damage 1 turn sooner, or it's a 3/2 that draws a card. I would never include the first option in a deck. The second option maybe, but since it only turns out like that half the time, I think I will pass on this card. The 12th card is the Matter Bomber, a 5/4 neutral minion for 5 mana that deals 6 damage randomly split between all other characters. The Mad Bomber's big brother. I don't think this minion is going to see much play. Unlike the Mad Bomber, this minion does not have decent baseline stats for its mana cost. Its stats are like a 4 mana creature, but even then it's a 5/4 rather than a 4/5. Which is weaker since it's susceptible to more common removal like Soulfire and Eviscerate. In theory, it seems like it would be good versus Sue, but the fact that you won't know what it's going to kill, if anything, means that I would rather put a Sludge Belcher in my deck over this to combat aggro. The 13th card is the Clockwork Giant, an 8/8 neutral minion for 12 mana that costs 1 less mana for each card in your opponent's hand. It immediately makes me think Aggro Mill Rogue. This card definitely benefits that deck. However, I'm not sure this card will be enough to bring Aggro Mill back from obscurity. The 14th card is the Enhanso Mechano, a 3/2 neutral minion for 4 mana with a battle cry that gives your other minions Wind Fury, Taunt, or Divine Shield. A card with the same stats that gave all of your minions Divine Shield, or one that gave all of them Wind Fury, would be very strong. Sometimes you would want Wind Fury, and other times you would want Divine Shield. The fact that it's a random and that the third option is Taunt makes this card a lot less useful. I don't think this card will see a lot of play. A 15th card is the Piloted Sky Golem, a 6/4 neutral minion for 6 mana with a Death Rattle that summons a random 4-cost minion. Which would be the best 4-drop it could summon? Probably a Yeti, right? Bloodhoof is extremely similar to this card, but it always summons a Yeti. I think Bloodhoof is superior in non-mech decks, but this card is probably better in decks that utilize mech synergy. In non-mech decks, it would make a good replacement for Bloodhoof. The 16th card is the Recombobulator, a 3/2 neutral minion for 2 mana. It has a battle cry to transform a friendly minion into a random minion with the same cost. I suppose this card could be used as a pseudo-heal to a damaged minion, or it could be used on a minion that is mostly useful for its battle cry but has otherwise weak stats, like the Gnomes Inventor. If it could transform that into a Yeti, that would certainly be useful. This card might be decent in some decks. The 17th card is Blingtron 3000, a 3/4 neutral minion for 5 mana. It has a battle cry that equips a random weapon for each player. I think this card might be decent in decks that already run Acidic Swamp Oozes. Then, when you're against a non-weapon clash, you can play this on turn 7 together with an Ooze. I'm not really sure though, it might be too convoluted. The 18th card is Dr. Boom, a 7/7 neutral minion for 7 mana. It has a battle cry that summons 2 Boom Bots. It's one of those cards that would have been better as a 6/7. I think this is a decent minion though, if you can dodge the big game hunters. The 2 boombots add a lot of value to the card. I could even see this card working pretty well in a druid token deck, since it gives 3 minions for 1 card, helping to set up for that combo. Big game hunter is this minion's only weakness. If it wasn't for that card, I think this card would be great. The 19th card is Mech Thermopluck, a 9/7 neutral minion for 9 mana that summons a leper gnome every time an enemy minion dies. I don't think this card is very good. I would much prefer to play with Kel'Thuzad in my deck. Both cards benefit heavily from the board being contested, but I think Kel'Thuzad gives the better deal, as well as being 1 mana cheaper and not dying to big game hunter. The 20th card is Mimiran's Hat, a 4/5 neutral minion for 5 mana that destroys all your mechs and summons Voltron if you have at least 3 mechs at the beginning of your turn. This card scares me. If a rogue plays this together with 2 other mechs and conceal, you're probably going to die next turn. Voltron's Mega Windfury means that it has 4 attacks per turn, so with just 1 Coldblood, it can deal 32 damage in 1 turn. I don't like this. I don't understand why Blizzard would introduce this after nerfing Leroy's Shadow Dance. The 21st card is Sneed's Old Shredder, a 5/7 neutral minion for 8 mana with a Death Rattle that summons a random legendary. A very high value card, but it might be a bit too slow. The stats it has makes it almost worthy of being a 6-drop by itself, so as long as you can get 3 mana or more value out of the Death Rattle, it has fulfilled its value purpose. When the meta is right, this card might be quite useful. Say in a Control Warrior mirror, this card would be amazing. Versus Hunters, not so much. The 22nd card is Flame Cannon, a 2 mana Mage spell that deals 4 damage to a random enemy minion. Auctioneer Killer. Other than that, it shouldn't be too hard to get decent value out of it. You can kill a lone Yeti with this and Fire Blast. A decent card, especially in a Miracle Rogue heavy meta. The 23rd card is Unstable Portal, a 2 mana Mage spell that adds a random minion to your hand that then costs 3 mana less than usual. Interesting card. It might be quite useful together with cards like Sorcerer's Apprentice, making it cost 1 mana, basically giving you a random minion for 2 less mana than it would normally cost. The randomness of it might stop it from being used much though. The 24th card is Goblin Blast Mage, a 5/4 mage minion for 5 mana with a battle cry that deals 4 damage randomly split between enemy characters, if you own a mech. Completely useless unless you're running a mech deck. In a mech deck, it is kinda like a reverse Yeti and Arcane Missiles in one, with the condition that you already have a mech on the board. Probably a bit too circumstantial to see much use, but you'll see. The 25th card is Valen's Chosen, a 3 mana priest spell that gives a minion +2/4 and 1 spell damage. The obvious comparison is Blessing of Kings. However, I think this card is better because it's a priest card and you thrive with high HP minions. It also happens to be 1 mana cheaper, of course. I can see a turn 1 Northshire Cleric into coin Valen's Chosen being a common play, giving them a 3/5 with spell damage on turn 2 that can attack to kill whatever the opponent played on their turn 2. I think this is a decent card that will see some play. The 26th card is Shrink Meister, a 3/2 priest minion for 2 mana that has a battle cry, lowering an enemy minion's attack with 2 for 1 turn. Extremely powerful card. It can be used on turn 2 in a pinch, or it can be used later to enable Shadow Word Pain to work on minions all the way up to 5 attack. Or with the Cabal Shadow Priest to steal minions with up to 4 attack. Personally, I don't look forward to playing against this card. The 27th card is Upgraded Repair Bot, a 5/5 priest minion for 5 mana that gives a friendly mech +4 health. Extremely powerful in mech decks, useless in non-mech decks. Not much to say about this one. If you run a priest mech deck, you will include this card. If you don't, you will not. The 28th card is Ogre Warmaul, a 4/2 warrior weapon for 3 mana, with the downside that it attacks the wrong enemy 50% of the time. Now, if only it was 100% of the time, it would be a reliable concealed auctioneer killer, but that's not the case. As it is, I don't think many warriors will use this weapon, as the 5e War Axe and Death's Bite are simply better. The 29th card is Bouncing Blade, a 3-mana warrior spell that deals 1 damage to a random minion over and over until it kills a minion. Now, this can actually be used to kill concealed auctioneers, because as long as there are no other minions on the board, well, the auctioneer is gonna die. It also has good synergy with Acolyte of Pain and Armorsmith. I might try out this card. Looks fun. Those are all the cards for now. However, there are still many more to come. Blizzard has stated that they revealed most of the cards with random effects up front to emphasize the randomness of Goblins and Gnomes, so we will probably see less randomness on the cards revealed in the future. Thanks for watching, everyone. I'll see you next time. Bye bye.